Hey, time for another interview question. This time, let's see what JavaScript madness is in store with regards to scopes and hoisting. Okay, so here is the interview question. You're tasked to figure out what is the output of this entire chunk of code. So there's a bit going on. First, there's a let variable of x set to the string red. Then there's this block of code over here. X is used again to be set to green. There's a console.log. Then there's this function over here which is called. Within there, there's some more console.logs as well as x declared again. And then at the very end, a console.log of x occurs to complete the overall thing. Now, taken as a whole, it can be a lot to try to figure out the answer right away. So instead of doing the whole thing at once, let's go ahead and comment out the entire question. And I'm going to go ahead and start with a more smaller isolated case. As always, feel free to code along in your own instance of Replit. So the part that we can isolate is first this let x equals redline. So let's go ahead and copy and paste in that let x equals redline. And then this whole part in the middle is a whole block of code. So that can be isolated since it's within its own scope, which means the next line which we can add is console.log for : and x. And this isn't so bad. There's only 2 lines here, and we can expect that this would output red. Now, as a total, it would actually output 4 : red. Negligible, so red is fine as the marker for the output. So now we get to the more tricky part, this block of code. So let's start rewriting that block of code in the middle of the 2 lines. The very first part of that block of code is let x equal green. So x has been redeclared in this block of code. But it actually should be fine because let variables are scoped according to code blocks. So even though x has already been used within the overall program, we can actually redeclare it in this code block. There's not going to be a duplicate declaration error. So we can move on to the next line, which is a console.log, first of the label 1, and then that variable x. And in this case, since x has been redeclared, the output should be green. Cool. Moving on, we now get to the most meaty part of the question, this anonymous function. It's anonymous because this function over here doesn't have a name. Let's go ahead and rewrite that function. So here's the function. And the function above immediately does a console.log. So for our sake, let's replicate that console.log, but with a different one. Instead of doing the actual x variable log, for now, let's say log from an anonymous function. I'm going to need more space over here within Replit. All right. Now, the function can also be called by calling it with a pair of curly braces. But JavaScript needs to distinguish the fact that these pair of curly braces aren't another block of code. It needs to know that these curly braces are attached and associated to that function. So you have to wrap this whole thing with a pair of parentheses again. All right, now we're going to give away what these 2 console.logs are, but to investigate this console.log, let's go ahead and run the program, and you get log from an anonymous function. And so far, our predictions have been consistent. 1 is green, and then 4 is red. Cool. Also, what is showing is that the log from the anonymous function occurs, which means we can move on to the actual content of the function itself. First, it does a console.log of 2 and x. So here is the console.log of first 2 and then x. Now, it's tempting at this point to say that this x is going to return green. After all, x at this point is still assigned the green string. However, there's this line over here of var x equals blue. Notice that this is the only variable that has defined, or rather that has been defined, using the var keyword. And that should catch your attention. Because recall that vars created with the var keyword behave differently than let variables and constant variables. Vars do hoisting, which means their values are hoisted to the top of the function scope. So JavaScript with hoisting goes through the code and processes it in 2 steps. First, it goes through and finds any variable or function declarations, and then it moves those to the top of the relevant scope. For a variable, in this case, that is the function scope. So it says, hey, there's a variable over here, so let me declare that variable before anything else. And since var x has been declared, it's implicitly declared to be undefined. So really, x, at this point of the console.log, isn't going to be green. It's going to be undefined. All right. Now the declaration is moved up, but not the assignment, which means x is still going to be assigned to blue on that next line. And now we can go to the final line of the anonymous function, which is a console.log first of 3 as a label, and then x. And at this point, x has now become blue. Cool. So let's go ahead and restore the code back to its original form. Over here, our overall prediction is green, undefined, blue, and red. So this is our code for investigation, but let's comment back in the original code for the overall question. So what is the output of let x equal red all the way down to this point? And all right, with a run, you'll find that the overall output is green, undefined, blue, and red, which is exactly the order that we had for the investigation. Green, undefined, blue, and red. Excellent. So 100% on the interview, we got the job. Nice. Overall, this question is evaluating your knowledge of scoping and hoisting in JavaScript. If you get a question like this, it's a chance for you and the interviewer to talk about the odd parts of the language and discuss your various experiences. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.